In today's episode, we're going to talk about 4 signs that you might be settling for average that you don't even know it. Some things that are hiding in plain sight, and we're going to talk about it right here. Welcome back to the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. I'm your host, Rickey Jasper. Today's episode is going to be a fun one, but first, thank you all so much for watching the episode. If you like it, please comment, subscribe, share it to those that you know that it will help. We're just trying to help be better people here on this podcast. But today's episode, we're talking about 4 signs that you might be settling for average and you don't know it. So I'm going to list them at a high level, and then we're really going to dive into it. So at a high level, 1, you're not expecting more of yourself. Number 2, you're bored. You don't see a future in the thing. Number 3, you resent activities you're engaging in. And number 4, you're critical of others. You're focused so much on other people. Realizing that you're settling for average is a great place to be because you identify areas that you can and want to improve. You identify areas that you want to push yourself to a level of greatness. You identify areas that you don't want to just sit there, because if you sit and you settle for average, what it does is you end up just staying. You think you're comfortable, and it's comfortable at first because it feels comforting, but then it becomes very uncomfortable because you don't like being there, and then you become resentful, and all of this negative stuff starts to take hold that you just don't want to take hold. So we're going to get into it, and this is, the tips will be kind of baked into the points here, but these are areas for you to really, really think hard, and if they apply to you in any aspect of your life, in relationship, in your job, in your lifestyle, in your faith, in anything, then it might be time for you to rethink and to make some different decisions. Number 1, you're not expecting more of yourself. As a individual on this earth, you have so much power within you. You have so many things that are within your control. When you stop expecting more of you, that means that you stop trying hard. When you stop trying hard, a lot of things go to the wayside. Having an expectation in expecting a lot out of yourself is a great thing. Now, it doesn't mean that you're always going to meet those expectations. It doesn't mean that you're always going to be perfect, but having a high expectation of yourself shows that you feel that you can do some things that are outside of maybe your comfort zone right now. I expect that I, come on this podcast and I pour my heart out, that I do everything that I can to help, because I have a level of expectation that I want to be better in doing this, and I expect, to see this through, and I expect other people's lives to be changed, and I expect people to be helped. But if I didn't expect any of that, then I wouldn't do it. Or if I did it, then I would just go about it and not put my all into it, and then things would just flop, and the product wouldn't be what myself or Mason, behind the camera would want it to be, right? So have an expectation that is great of yourself. You're not average. I don't care who told you that. I don't care who's speaking death into your life. You're not average. You have so many great qualities about you. And I think that it's very easy to look at social media. It's very easy to look at not even social media, but just conversations with people, and people saying, well, yeah, it's just kind of like this and everything is fine. And then you think, well, my life is just destined to be fine and average. Some things in life are going to be average and status quo, but other things that you expect more out of yourself do not have to be average. They don't. I can say, I expect to have an average breakfast every morning. That's great. But when I get in front of camera, I don't expect to give average effort. I can expect to, give average effort into making my breakfast in the morning, because it's like, it's not something that matters to me. But if there's a chef that expects to make the most 5-star breakfast ever, then that's the expectation. That's the effort that's being put into that. I expect to have 5-star effort into this because this is something that I love doing. So I refuse to settle for average in doing this. Whatever you refuse to settle for average in, that's where you should elevate your expectations of yourself. And it's cool not even to meet your own expectations sometime, because you're striving for something. I have an expectation of myself that's so high up here, but I'm giving myself grace because I'm like, I might not meet it, and I want to keep not meeting it because I want to keep pushing it higher as I increase the levels that I get to. So not expecting more of yourself, number 1 sign that you might be settling for average. Number 2, you're bored or you don't see a future with it. Now, this is kind of a relationship one that, we kind of get into here in this podcast, and I'm not a relationship expert. I love talking about relationships because I was on every side of it, from not loving being in relationships to really enjoying being in a committed relationship to seeing the issues with both sides and in issues within and working through those things. So you have 2 people, coming to one. But being bored or seeing no future. From a relationship standpoint, if you're just bored with the relationship and you don't see a future that it's going somewhere, or you don't have a direction that you want to push it in or walk in, then you're settling for average. And at some point in time, it's going to get very uncomfortable. And that discomfort, it might break down the line, but you already have that, tied, connection point that makes it feel like this is the most horrible breakup with someone who, probably wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. And that could be with a job, that could be with anything else. If you're bored in a thing and you don't see a future in it, but you are looking, tomorrow, the next day, the next month, and that's in the future, but that thing is still there, you might not see a future in it, but you're allowing that to be the future for you. You have an ability to dictate an element of your future. There's a lot of things that are outside of our control, but there are a lot of things that are within our control, and you can dictate what your future is. So if you're bored with a thing and you don't feel like it's growing you, and you don't feel like, it's an area that you're going to be in down the road, don't spend time with it. Life's too short to just sit and settle for average when the reality is we could die tomorrow, or, we could have this long life and we could just sit and look back and say, man, I really wasted the time I had on this earth when I knew for a fact I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be doing these things. And now I feel like I've wasted my years. I refuse to waste my years. I hope you refuse to waste your years, because what that's going to do is that's going to instill confidence that whatever comes your way, if you don't love it, if it's not something that really ignites you, you stick and move. You're like, oh, this isn't it. Time to move. Now, I'll say from a relationship standpoint, that doesn't mean, oh, go quit on relationships if it's a good relationship. No, but what I am saying is, hey, if it's something that's not growing you, it's something that deep down in your heart and in your soul and your mind that it's not going anywhere, why are we doing it? Well, it doesn't make sense. Like, that comfort becomes uncomfortable so much more so down the road, and you want to avoid that. Number 3, you resent activities you're engaging in. This is interesting. I know when I need a break when it comes to, from a fitness standpoint, or where I need a shift up. It's when I go to the gym or I'm doing a specific type of training and I'm like, I hate doing this right now. I don't want to do it. That's when I know, okay, it's time to change. I need to change something. I need to set new goals. I need to do a new thing. I'm not going to stop fitness, right? But I'm going to change this activity. You might be in, let's say, a relationship, a great relationship, but you start resenting the day-to-day activities that you're doing. Change it. Doesn't mean you need to throw away the relationship, but you change it, right? How you're going about your habits, whether they are typically, if they're a negative thing, you start to resent the habits, the things that you're doing, because you can do better. You should be doing better, and that you're meant for more. When you start to really resent the things that are within your control, that's when it's time to change. These are things that are within your control that you're mindfully saying, I'm going to do this, but I don't like it, and it doesn't make me feel good, and I can't stand it, but I'm still going to do it. It doesn't make sense. When you start to resent those things, it's time for you to move in a completely different direction so you can focus on things that you enjoy doing, and the things that you enjoy doing, you can be well beyond average in, because you actually want to be there. You actually like doing it. And number 4, you're critical of others, or you're focusing on them. I hope I don't butcher this, but there is a biblical story in Jeremiah where, Jeremiah is calling out to God, and he's just like, hey, the bad people are doing all these bad things, but they're getting a whole lot of reward. And God, replies to him, basically, you're focusing on these footmen, but I need you to run with horses. And when you run with horses, and when you're in these tougher situations, like, I'm gonna need you to be a little stronger than that. I'll handle them over here, but I'm gonna need you to be a little stronger than that, because you're focused down here. I need you to focus up here, right? So when your focus is off and it's so critical of other people, you can't even focus on what you're supposed to be doing, where you're supposed to be. God can have a place where he needs to take you higher, but he's like, I need to take you over here, which means that you have to look over here. When you're running, if I turn this way, my body wants to run where my head is focused. Wherever you're focusing on, that's where you're going to end up being. And so sometimes you might be settling for average because you're so focused on other people, and other people are just being average, or even if they're doing some great things, that's great things that are in their life, that's for them. It's not even for you. So you're settling for focusing on other people, doing other things, and not even focusing on what you need to be doing. I think that this is, it's a weird thing in the social space where it's like a trend happens and then people just start doing the same trend and they identify with the trend. It's like, okay, but like you saw it like a lot with TikTok, like the TikTok dances. Like people, there was a dance that went viral, then everybody's like, let me just make a following on these dances that I don't even like dancing, but I just want it to get the eyeballs and to get the likes and the comments, the shares. But it's like when it's a new trend, it's a new fad, they're going to be doing that new fad, right? It's like every coach who's like, I'm a macro coach, and then it's like I'm a keto coach, and then it's like it's just the fad thing, but it's not. And they're focused on a fad, and they're following a fad, but they're not following what they want to talk about. Like I know there's things I can get on camera and talk about and be super controversial or whatever to get views and stuff like that, but I'm like, I don't like talking about that. I don't care to talk about that. And even if this gets 20 views and another things get a million views, I'm going for the 20 all day, every day, and twice on Sunday, because this is something that I'm passionate in. This is a focus and a focal point that I have my blinders on. I'm not focused on other people. When you focus so much on other people and what other people want to do with their lives, you miss out on you, and you're settling for average by nature because you have something that is so uniquely yours to focus on. I don't know what that is because I'm not you. I don't go through life being you, and I go through life focusing on what I need to focus on. You really want to lock into it. You're always going to be second best trying to be someone else. You're always going to be first best trying to be you. So locking in to what you want to do and not worrying about what other people are doing, not comparing yourself to others, that's going to help you out so much. So to drive this all in, the 4 signs that you might be settling for average when you are destined for great. Number 1, you're not expecting more of yourself. You're just kind of going along to get along. Number 2, you're bored. You don't see a future in it. You're doing the thing every day like this is going to be my future, but you really don't see a future on it. That's insanity. It doesn't make sense. Stop doing the same things, expecting your future to be different results. Number 3, you resent activities you're engaging in. These are activities that you are choosing to engage in. If you are resenting them and you're choosing to do it, start doing different activities. And number 4, you're critical of others. You're so focused on other people and what they're doing. That mindset, that's an average, it's a settling for average mindset. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Lock into what you need to be doing to get yourself on the right path. So I hope that this helps. Our word of the day for this one is honesty. The reason why it's honesty is because you got to be brutally honest with yourself. You have to be brutally honest if you're settling for the relationship you're in, the job that you're in, the lifestyle that you have, the habits that you're doing. Honesty is an easy thing, but it does not always feel good because you have to look at things that you've held so close to you for so long, and you have to assess it and honestly assess it instead of distracting yourself, instead of just saying, I'm going to go along to get along. And for me, honestly assessing certain relationships that I had in the past, honestly assessing how I was being a negative person and not a help, to a relationship, not giving my all to a relationship, focusing on other people while I was in a relationship. All of these things I had to be honest with myself about. I had to be honest about, okay, am I giving my all to, producing a podcast, or Mason producing a podcast and me being in front of camera and me being prepped and ready and stuff like that? Am I being honest about that? Am I being honest about what I love doing and working on my speaking career and stuff like that? The minute that I was honest and I realized I'm not doing a lot in these areas, it gave me a foundation to change. It gave me a foundation to say, in these areas that I'm being average in, these are the areas that I want to be great in. Like I want to be great in. So what I can do is I can start making a plan to be great in those things. Now, will I be great? I don't know, but am I going to give great effort? 100%. And so when you're honest about those things in your life, you start to go from average to good to great. And it takes time, but you have to be honest. You have to do the hard things. You have to have the tough conversations. Not all of this stuff in life is easy. It's not meant to be easy, but doing the tough things and being honest, starting with honesty, that is going to just push you in a direction that you need to be going. I always say that. I always say push you in a direction that you need to be going. And I think the reason why I say that is because when you're chasing a greater vision, like the name of the podcast, like you're chasing something. And in order to chase something, you have to be going in a direction. And a direction has to be based on your sight. And if your sight is all messed up, then you cannot chase in a right direction that you're supposed to be. You have to have your eyesight in the right area first. Chase the greater vision. Your eyesight has to be in the right area, the location, so you can chase it. And it's going to be chasing in a direction, and it's a pointed direction. That is an area that you can only decide for you. I can't decide that for you. I know my direction. I know my vision. I know where I need to be going, where I want to be going. And sometimes that might change, but this is a direction that I need to be going. Find your direction. Refuse to settle for average. You can be great as long as you set your mind to it, as long as you set your sights on it. So I hope that this podcast episode helped you. I love talking about it. If it did, if somebody needs to hear it, please like, comment, share it to them directly. Hopefully we talk in the comments. Shoot me a DM. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you on the next episode. Peace. Thank you all so much for watching the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. If you like this podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, send it to friends, use a carrier pigeon, do whatever you have to do. We hope that this inspires you to chase your greater vision in your life and for us to continually and consistently do it together.